It's Easter, and usually on Easter we have kind of an Eastery message, right? You know, the empty tomb, what that means, that kind of thing. But it's going to be a little bit different from normal message today, but I'll kind of cut to the chase and tell that Easter morning story in brief. Just kind of the bullet points of it. Just to be clear, Jesus was dead. I mean, died, 100% dead, no question about that. A few people kind of have some wacko ideas that say he didn't really die, that he was just kind of really almost dead for like 3 days, and just somehow so cool air in the grave made him feel better, and he got up, you know, after being beaten within an inch of his life, having a crown of thorns pounded into his head, being whipped, mocked, spit on, punched, and hung on a cross. Somehow he just survived that, you know. It's a crazy idea, but people actually buy into that. But mostly not. Most people are pretty convinced that Jesus was a real person and that Jesus died. They don't dispute that on a historic basis. Some people won't trust in who he said he was, but they'll at least say, yeah, he was a guy that died. In fact, there's medical proof of it in the scripture. From the accounts that are recorded in the scripture, they mention that they were going around breaking the legs of the two other men that were crucified so they would die faster because they couldn't push themselves up to get a breath. But Jesus, they said, well, I think he's already dead. So they jabbed him with a spear up in under his rib cage, and it either punctured his lungs or his heart. And because of the blood loss that he had and the shock that he would have gone into, I looked it up, it's called hypovolemic shock. It means he was running out of blood, and so his body was going into shock. And so what it ends up doing is it puts this watery just buildup around the lungs and around the heart. And if it was his heart, and when they stabbed that, and it says blood and water flowed out. It's called a pericardial effusion. I looked these things up. I just had to know. And maybe some of you are like me, and you were like, I always wondered why it says that. They didn't have those terms. They didn't know that. And I'm sorry if it's a little bit gross, but a crucifixion is pretty nasty stuff. But Jesus was 100%, no doubt about it, dead. He wasn't coming back from that from a natural viewpoint. He wasn't just somehow springing up back to life. In fact, the soldier that pierced him looks upon him and says, truly, this was the Son of God. In that moment, he's convinced that they got the wrong guy here. Of course, Jesus, none of this surprised him. He said, nobody takes my life from me. I lay it down of my own accord. I have the authority to do that. And I also have the authority to pick it back up again. Nobody raised Jesus from the dead. He had the authority himself to raise himself from the dead, and he did. And on Easter Sunday morning, it wasn't just that Jesus rose again. On Easter Sunday, they discovered that he was risen again. On Easter Sunday, some women went to the tomb, and then later they told some guys who said, nah, you're crazy. Is that the first time a guy's told a woman she was crazy? It's not. We keep making that mistake. We keep saying it, guys. We probably should just stop saying that. Like, you can tell each other, like, man, that woman, I don't know, like, I married her, but sometime, you know, but just like, and then just leave it alone, you know, like, don't tell her, like, hey, you're acting crazy. That doesn't ever work well. It never, it's like when somebody tells you, hey, guys, you should just kind of calm down a little. It's not a good idea, is it, Joe?
It's not nice.
It's not nice either. So just leave it alone. Just be quiet, and it'll continue. It'll come to an end. Just keep loving them. That's right. Jesus rose from the grave, and I think they found that tomb, that stone rolled away, not because Jesus needed it out of the way to get out. I think it was so that we could see in and know that he was no longer held by death. That the words he had spoken, where he said, I have the authority to resume my life again, that he made good on that. In other words, if he had said that and then he remained in that tomb, his words, everything, his whole life doesn't matter. It's a sham. It's a lie. But because that stone was rolled away and they saw that empty tomb, they could understand that what he said was true, and they could rest their lives on that. There were over 500 people over the next few weeks that would witness the risen Christ. People that knew him, that had known him, and that saw him, they ate with him, they would touch him and realize he's not an apparition, a ghost, a figment of their imagination, or a hallucination, because as one popular podcaster suggested from a single book that he read, a nut job decided that what he believes happened was that all these disciples had some weird psychedelic mushroom, and they all tripped in the same exact way to believe that they had just kind of witnessed something that didn't really exist. They all had the same psychedelic trip from these weird mushrooms that they found, and they believed they had seen the risen Christ. And then they lived their lives out, giving their lives over to death for that trip that they went on. Now, I don't have that history in my life, but I can't ever imagine being on any substance so strong that I would stake my life on it and say, yes, I'm willing to die over what I saw when I was high. I just don't see that happening. But these men, now somebody might go to their death willingly to, if they believe a lie, but nobody that knows something is a lie will willingly die for that lie. In other words, these disciples, they believed that they had witnessed, been around, experienced the risen Christ, and they would die for their witness of that testimony. Most of the disciples of Jesus did. Nobody would do that if they knew it was a lie. If they knew it was a lie, they wouldn't do that. 500 witnesses to the resurrected Christ. This is well accounted for in history, but yet it takes faith on our part. The empty tomb means that your life could be full.